Hello, I'm going to talk to you today about a condition of mine and many other people that you may or may not have experience with before. But throughout this talk, I'm not just going to expect you to listen. I want you to ask yourself if any of this sounds familiar to you. Most people with this condition don't understand that it is actually kind of unique. So synesthesia is just like anesthesia with a word. So it is without feeling, but instead join feeling. Synesthesia is when two senses are crossed. So, for instance, the stimulation of one cognitive or sensory pathway leads to an immediate response in another. This is pretty common with a lot of people on a spectrum of sorts, and its most basic level is this classic example of boba and kiki. Ramachandran and Hubbard redid this experiment recently, and what they did is they asked subjects which one of these objects is kiki and which one is boba. So the majority of people say the spiky one is kiki and the round one is boba. This suggests that the human brain attaches abstract meaning to shapes and sounds, just naturally. More abstract forms of synesthesia are grapheme to color synesthesia. So for me, S is always red. It always has been, always will be. It's just what it is. And this is the same for every single other letter of the alphabet. Although if you have this type of synesthesia, these aren't the correct colors. You'll see different colors. It's cool. It's fine. Cool test for this, or this is a funny example, is because you can see different colors with different letters and symbols, you'll see messages that other people can't see. So hi, Mom. I think she's over there somewhere. Yeah. Another example of more abstract forms of synesthesia are the auditory synesthesia. For me, I can physically see sounds as, pitches to colors. So this is my sort of scale. So C is red, D is blue, E is yellow, always has been, always will be. And this is really awesome when I jump in on jam sessions. If no one knows what key they're in, I just see what color they're doing, and I just kind of mimic the shapes. It's pretty awesome. Or I never studied ear training, because what I would do for intervals, they always ask you, just remember different songs and relate that interval to the song, and you'll figure it out. I would figure out what the colors were, and then I would kind of do the math in my head. It was kind of cheating. So one of the more fascinating types of synesthesia comes to us from the UK. This amazing man named James Wannerton. He tastes words. So logically, like everyone would do in this situation, he mapped out the London Underground based on what he tasted of each stop. And he was quoted as saying he'd have to get off a stop early if he didn't like the taste of where his destination was. So that's kind of funny, but, kind of awesome. A lot of people think that synesthesia is this sort of hallucinogenic experience, and it's really not. There's a genetic element to it, and it's just every day if you have it. So there's actually two different categories of synesthesia. So those that are the projectors, those that experience their photism. So for instance, if I hear a color as a shape in the outside world, anything that happens in the outside world to you, you're a projector. The things that you associate, so associators, more memory-based, hippocampal, you're an associator. So that type of synesthesia would be like if I see a letter and I know what color it is, I just know what it is. It's not out there in the outside world. Some cool questions you can start asking yourself to see, is this me? Do I have synesthesia? Or how do you remember someone's name? What does it mean to you look like a Scott? What does that mean? Do you use associations like I had a friend named Scott and you look kind of like him? For me, I might have a problem remembering someone's name if the color that their name is different from the color that I see with them as a person. So I apologize if that happens. Another thing is, does everyone remember middle school where you had those crazy vocabulary tests where you had to remember 20 words really quickly? Or obviously you should have studied over a week, but I would wait until the very last minute, and what I would do is I would be like, okay, cool, red word means this, okay? And then blue word means this, awesome. So I'd take the test and do pretty all right, except I still could not spell to this day. Whatever, it worked. So, other questions you should ask yourself is, how do you experience a sense? What happens when you smell things? What happens when you hear things? How do you understand how this is all coordinated in your mind? What happens when you smell your favorite food? Is there a color associated with that? There's a reason you remember things, and it can be very abstract, and your brain likes to have as many associations as possible in order to remember things. So who are these people? Who has this? It's a big question, and for instance, you just never know about it, and you don't understand it's unusual. I was 20 years old before I understood what was going on. I was in my final class for my music degree, and our professor mentioned, hey, you know, it's kind of cool, some people physically hear colors with sound. And I was like, duh. But I had no idea that people didn't do this. So it was just like a movie, everyone turned. It was like, no, that's not okay. What's happening here? So that led me to get my neuroscience degree and just to understand it a little bit better. So, oh. I've been demoted to microphone. So the original projections for this were about 1 in 25,000 people. That's pretty rare. And then they learned a little bit more about it. We know that it has a genetic element to it. So now some numbers were 1 in 2,000 people had this. It's kind of cool. It's not as rare. And I've seen numbers as high as 1 in 23 people have this. It's a pretty isolating experience when you find out that you're unusual in some way. And I'll tell for myself, I had this big experience of, oh my gosh, everything made sense. I am weird. All these years of being like made fun of for coloring my mom as pink and light blue. You know, when you're coloring in elementary school, like those aren't the right colors for people. And all these things, it just made sense. So enter in the Synesthesia Network I made with my husband. It's a Facebook for people who have it. And the idea is to get as much data on us as possible, because it's very important to understand synesthesia, just understand cognition, and to understand consciousness. And also, if you could figure out the mechanism that has this lack of inhibition in between the lobes, or this extra connectivity, even just genetically, it'd be huge for neurodegenerative diseases. It'd be great and so understudied. So for instance, you can take a grapheme to color test on the site. So you just use a little scrubby guy, and you pick out what color it is, and you just go through them twice, and you get a sweet data page. So what we know about this is that as synesthesia research goes on and evolves, just like as any sort of science study does, we are re-understanding what the normal human experience is for cognition and for consciousness. Going from 1 in 25,000 people to 1 in 23 for statistics, that's pretty great. And it makes you wonder, yeah, maybe it's pretty normal, actually. So what is this normal? Our worlds are the same to us, but just because we see things in different ways, I see colors with notes and numbers and letters, and you don't, that's fine. Your world could look like this, and my world could look like this. But it doesn't matter as long as we can relate to each other. Never knew there was a difference in between me and someone that did not have synesthesia until I was 20. So at this time, what I'm going to do is do something a little bit personal. My husband created a synesthesia light show where you can see the notes and the colors that I associate with my auditory synesthesia in real time. So I actually picked a song by a fellow synesthete, Mr. Pharrell Williams, and it's called Happy, and I hope you enjoy. Yeah. So real quick, you can actually see the notes and the colors right now, just so you can see that it's all in real time. So D is blue, A is like an orangish red, E is yellow, just for the basics. Thank you.